Gotta wait for her to start the recording.
Do you have any preference as to, you want to start with the question that you guys have, or do you want us, we can jump in?
No,
there?
probably kind of go through your,
Walk through highlights.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we thought, that if I'm easier, then we can just interview. You're not expecting anyone else like this?
no.
You good? You set?
I just gotta get her, it's not caught in the last part.
Okay.
Here, so I can write.
Take a comfy seat.
Huh?
Take a comfy seat.
No, sorry, I'm good here.
I thought it was killing me.
I'm not at that point.
I know, I
I'm
know.
good right here.
Those need to kill me eventually.
Too long here, make them fart.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Michelle, were you at the Cornell school or were you at Mason?
Ithaca.
Right, but it was
It was
coincidence that you're there. Nice.
Association of Towns. It was all the towns in Erie County. It was huge.
Thank you.
The Cornell Highway.
Everything you do stays big.
It was actually,
Yeah.
it was actually held through the Association of Towns.
Careful what you wish.
It was a lot of people. And not many women.
Ready to go?
We're good?
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, well, first of all, thanks again, guys, for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been sort of a long road getting here, but I think it's obviously been worth it. And the reason that we're here is because of what's in front of you as the town goes Ron and Ed and Michelle. We feel real good about the opportunity that we're presenting for you. You received the RFP. We brought a separate presentation to kind of highlight that. But before we jump in, I'm Steve O'Teeter with Honeywell. I think that goes, you and I have been talking for quite some time now. Been with the company about a year. Been in the industry 22 years. And so the experience that I'm bringing to the table is through a wonderful company that is financially profitable, got a lot of stability. We're going to jump into that a little bit. But I wanted to take a few minutes just let each team member kind of introduce themselves and what their capacity is for Honeywell.
So, sir,
Sure.
my name is Steve Schwartzmeyer. I've been with Honeywell for 5 years working on projects very similar to yours. So I will be your on-site project manager. I'll be here every day, making sure that what's defined in the plans and specifications is what gets built, that it gets built to a high standard, and that the folks that are doing the build are performing safely, and that they are respectful of the job that they're doing, the location that they're doing it, and the people that they're working around. So I'm looking forward to working with you and getting started, and thanks for letting me be here.
Hello everyone, I'm Prashant Arora. I've been with Honeywell for a year now, but before that I have 9 years experience as an energy engineer. I'm going to be the one who's going to be the developing the project. I'm working with the town to make sure all the needs are met. Look forward to working with you guys.
Jim Freeman, project management leader for Honeywell. Been with the company north of 25 years, I've lost count. That entire time I have been on the energy side of Honeywell doing this type of project. Since we started, I think most of the jobs that we referenced in New York were either jobs I directly managed or oversaw the managed job.
Good morning, my name is Sean Yates. I'm the regional sales leader for Honeywell. So I've been with Honeywell for about 20 years. Work with Steve to make sure that he has everything that he needs in order to be successful here. We are, very excited about the opportunity here. We're really looking to put a stake in the ground in Northwest New York and grow our business out here. We've done a substantial amount of business in the southeast portion of the state, and are really looking forward to growing in this territory. Okay.
Thanks, guys, I appreciate that. So, Ron, what I'm thinking of doing, I'll just run through this page by page. We're not going to cover every single thing.
Okay.
I would encourage, ask questions as you're going, so you don't have to worry about forgetting or, I'll refer to page numbers on the bottom. There's only one that's not actually numbered, it's still in sequence though, so. But on page 2, just to pick up now where all this vast experience comes from this team here that you see in front of you. Honeywell in general is just, great organization. I'm not going to sit here and self-promote, but I'm going to give details. Both headquarters, currently out of Charlotte, North Carolina. It's just good to know that we're where we are. Founded in 1906, around 113,000 employees globally. We've been specialists in this arena for, 30 years, almost 40 years now, since 1984. And the reason I bring that up is that the amount of, and again, we'll jump into this, we'll get into a little bit further with the presentation, but the amount of experience that Honeywell brings to the table isn't just localized, it isn't just New York State, it's the country, it's the world. That's the way Honeywell carries this, and we're really very proud of that. Very high credit rating, $11 billion assets in cash at any one point if necessary. And the reason that becomes vital is, again, into this a little further in the presentation. These guarantees, there's a lot wrapped around them. There's a very, very high cost jobs as far as what you're spending as a town, as a school, as a municipality. And really what that points to is things happen sometimes. Guarantees, if we don't meet up to where we're supposed to meet up to, and what the guarantee that we've offered, Honeywell has the ability to back that up. And there are some ESCOs out there operating currently that are a little bit smaller, not as financially well off. They just don't have the capacity to do that, so we'll talk about that. Pioneered performance contracting in 1984, that's when our feet were on the ground with it. And from then to now, the amount of experience, the amount of guarantees that have been written is exponential. $110 billion organization. Again, I can't say enough about what that really means to a customer. As big as we are, as small as we are, though. I'm right here in Lancaster. I've been a resident since, knee-high. Went to schools, my kids both graduated from Lancaster, so I got a lot invested in this town. I love being here, love being a taxpayer. I'm not going to go through all the accolades. You can read them. It kind of stands for itself.
So question on your, so you have 113,000 employees globally. How many are in the U.S.?
How many are in the U.S.?
I don't know that answer off the top of my head. I can certainly get back to you. I would suspect it's a large portion. We are a U.S.-based company, so all our headquarters are here in the U.S. But I don't have a number that I can give you.
The second part of the question would be, how many are local around this area, employees?
Sure, that's a fair question. So I would say, I know as far as I can talk about our service team, local in what I'll call the western portion of New York, we have about 9 service technicians that service this area, and that's specific to our controls, fire alarm, security business. So they're responsible for mechanical maintenance, controls maintenance, etc. As far as within the energy team itself, we have Steve, who we just brought on, as you heard initially, right, about a year ago. We have Steve, who's local here as well. So those two are focused on really developing and delivering projects. And then we have a team behind that of project managers. We also have in the state of New York, I guess, Ian, right? So Ian Carmel is in the state of New York.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have another engineer in Rochester, so everybody's waiting for that.
I'm in Rochester, myself went to UD.
So we're going to go through an org chart as we go through here and talk about specifically who would be associated with this project. But I mean, in terms of the Honeywell team, I'd say, around 10 people that's specific to energy, Jim, right, in the very local area.
Thanks. So, Ron, just to kind of piggyback off what Sean just mentioned, so we got the org chart on the next slide. It's the only one not numbered. I apologize for that. What this is pointing to is we have Sean in Syracuse, Steve Schwartzmeyer is close to me, I'm in Buffalo. But at any one time, these guys are deployable to do things that, because we have so much work going on, they're able to multitask, okay? But what I don't want to do is diminish the fact that how much emphasis will be put on this job. Steve's been doing this for a long time. He retired recently, but he's back at it again. This is the kind of experience that we draw upon, and this is the kind of experience that carries us through these opportunities. So I won't go through every single thing on the org chart. Do you have any specific question on that though? So Carl Markowitz, he isn't here today, he's an estimator. I think about 5 might be enough, I don't want to overwhelm you. But he does a great job for us putting costing together, making sure we're on our toes. Bob Tadona leads Prashant and the team for the energy engineers. These guys are pretty much the guys that put this stuff together. They make it come to life. Okay, so Prashant spent a significant amount of time here, walking buildings, understanding what's going on, what's not going on. Frank Capitamino, Frank handles measurement and verification. We're going to get into that a little bit further as well. It's a very vital part of what performance contracting is for 2 reasons. You have a job in front of you, an opportunity that comes to life that gets windows done, it gets lighting done, it gets all the things that are inefficient currently that you want to become efficient. In so doing that, we're putting together a guarantee that we have all the risk on. And we don't want the client, whether it's a school district, it's a state local government, it's a higher education, it could be anybody that has the ability to turn the meter and their buildings are operating in that dimension. The guarantee is everything though, because we put this together, we're going to spend it and invest a lot of time, a lot of effort, and when we do that, we have to make sure that we're actually hitting the mark that we guarantee that client, the town of Lancaster. If we commit a 30% reduction of your total spend, we have to make sure we're coming to that mark. So the M&V is vital, and we don't want to stipulate savings, we want to make sure we're measuring and guaranteeing that those savings are being met. Okay, and we'll get into that a little bit further. So if there's no other questions, though, this was part of the RFP. I'll use this table here. On slide 5, I felt it was good to, and I think collectively we felt it was good to just talk.
4, right?
I'm sorry, slide 4, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Energy performance contracting defined, I'm not going to read this word to word, but in New York State, Article 9 has promoted performance contracting since 1984. It became a viable means for public entities to take advantage of getting high efficiency, more efficient measures put into their buildings, and this is the most simplistic manner, and reaping the rewards of those higher efficiency measures, lowering their spend on utilities and gas and electric. Everybody's looking to save, and they just, there's no secret. It's a recipe though that's worked. It's self-funding for the energy conservation measures that are implemented, and the guaranteed savings contract. This is the most important part of this, because if you have a guarantee, you have peace of mind. We take on the risk as the energy service company, not the client. That's not what the performance contract was ever meant to do. It was meant to be a means for you to now allocate ways to get more efficient without having to go out to your public every single time you want to have a public referendum, raise the taxes, go back after selling $50 million, $80 million, bricks and mortar, a lot of it, because it's expensive to build buildings. And unfortunately, energy efficiency sometimes takes the back seat. This is where energy performance contracting is very, very valuable. So it's a single source provision. Really, I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but you can read those. If there's any other question, please ask. But it's energy infrastructure auditing. That's where Prashant and our team that heads up the energy development side of it, that's what these guys do. They're very, very intelligent, they've got a lot of experience. They bring to the table the fact that they're able to understand what's going on in your buildings really more than probably you would. But that's what they do for a living every single day. Construction and commissioning, there's the financing, we would help with the financial part of this, we'll get into that a little bit further as well. The guaranteed results, again, you have to know at the end of the day, once the construction is done, the dust has settled, that the town's going to benefit, and that we're taking on the risk, and we're helping you to avoid that. Any questions on that slide, or does that all make sense?
Steve, does it make sense to, I guess, does everybody understand the organizational chart? I just want to make sure that functionally, people, absolutely. Are you guys okay? I feel like that's probably an important thing to discuss, right?
Do you want to go through it, or
yeah, I can go through it, it's fine. So I guess if we start from the left to the right, just to lay out, this is the team that we dedicated to your project, right? These individuals on here, and some of them are backups to each other, right? So we always try to make sure that we have some level of backup. So starting at the top, you see Steve, who will act as the account executive. Really, Steve's role is really, Steve, I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, but program manager, right? So he's responsible for working with you to understand what your goals and needs are, and ensure that that's what ends up in the project at the end of the day, right? So he's kind of the quarterback for the overall Honeywell team to make sure that your message is communicated properly back to our team. So I'm Steve's backup, and will be involved in multiple meetings, et cetera, try to stay involved as much as I can. Obviously, Steve will be the day-to-day, but we'll always be talking. And then if you start from the left, moving to the right, from the second line down, so Carl Markowitz, so he's our senior estimator. So he's responsible for putting together all pricing, validating any pricing that we get from subcontractors when we do go out to bid. So we would actually go out to bid for the work on your behalf and transparently share that pricing with you. Carl will be the person involved in that process to validate the pricing before it even gets to you and make sure that we're where we should be. So that's Carl's responsibility. And then you see the next line over, that's the Solutions Development Engineering team. So Bob Tadona, he runs the team local to here. So Bob's actually out of Pennsylvania, and Prashant reports into Bob. So Prashant's in New York, right, and be responsible for this project. And then Ali Raza actually backs up Prashant. Okay. And I believe Ali Raza is actually in New York.
It's Rochester.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the Solution Development Engineering. So they're responsible for the technical side of things for you, right? Next line over, that's Frank Capolino. Frank is actually responsible for measurement and verification. So that's what Steve talked a lot about, the guarantee. After we do put together a contract for you, we will actually guarantee the savings over the term of the contract, whatever that might be, 15, 20 years. And Frank is responsible for ensuring that we're actually achieving those savings on an ongoing basis, as well as actually meeting with you and reviewing the results on an annual basis at a minimum. Okay. And then you'll see the next line over, so Jim Freeman. Jim's here. Introduced himself, obviously. So Jim's project management leader. So he has a team of project managers that report into him. You'll see those listed below. He's kind of backed up by Ian Currow here, who is also a local project management leader for us. So the two of them manage the pool of resources that we have in our project managers. And you'll see down below there, Steve Schwartzmeyer is a gentleman who's down here on the end, right? So Steve has been assigned to this project and will be responsible for the actual delivery, construction, addressing things when they come up, as we know that they always do and will, right? Making sure that things go smoothly and that ultimately we don't want your operations impacted at all, right? We understand that you have to run your day-to-day business, and we want to stay out of your way, get the work done, get you the improvements to your buildings and the savings that we promised to you without interrupting your services. So, all right, so I appreciate you letting me walk through that. Just questions?
Yeah, I do. So a lot of this is all in-house, obviously.
Correct.
Is there anything that you subcontract during these phases, these projects?
Sure. So, it depends on the specific requirements of the project, but a typical subcontract for us would be mechanical subcontractors, controls vendors. A lot of people think that we always use Honeywell controls, being that we are Honeywell. We're actually vendor neutral, so we'll use whatever the right technology is for the project. So controls is often a subcontractor, electrical is a subcontractor, really the trades, right? All the trades would be subcontractors for us. From an engineering perspective, we generally will team up with an engineer, so we'll hire an engineer to do plant specifications for us. What else am I missing, Jim? Any other? That's kind of covered, right? That's about it. Yeah, so design would be an engineer that we would work with, and we're open to generally working with, if the town of Lancaster has a preferred engineer, we will, work with that engineer or architect where applicable. So, we're pretty open and flexible around that, but that is something that we would subcontract as well as the trades. Okay.
Makes sense, right? There's two things that come out of that from what Sean, thank you, Sean, for going through that, by the way, in reiteration of the org chart, because I think what's evident here is we're willing to work with the town on whatever is the most comfortable for you, from choice of subcontraction, from subcontractors, what Sean mentioned. We're vendor neutral, which is very important that we're not going to come in here and tell you how we have to do this. We're going to tell you how we can do it. With your help and your assistance, we'll work with those that you're comfortable with, that you've worked with in the past. So that's pretty vital. Thanks again, Sean. All right, we're going to do energy performance contract that we find on slide 5 now. A comprehensive solution, what does that mean? I mean, we can talk about it all day, but at the end of the day, it's going to look at it being performance contracting, and what Prashant and his team can do and has done is we're able to identify what in your buildings isn't going the way it should be. And by no means does it reflect on the town itself. You got a great staff. You guys do the best you can to keep up on whatever it is it's failing or it's inefficient. But at the end of the day, you also have people that have full-time jobs that always can't be there to help you with those things. So the expertise comes in with the amount of experience, number one, that we have. But secondly, when we approach the design aspect of this and how we're going to look at the building and the way they're operating and what's inefficient and what's not, we'll look to you for guidance, which we did through the RFP. But in addition to that, what Prashant was able to do and what that team was able to do is identify above and beyond what are the main priorities. What else can we look at? So we'll get further into the FIMs in a minute, the facility improvement measures. But if you look at this, you go through all of these. We talk about roofing replacements, we talk about energy awareness programs, motor replacements, building automation systems. Sean just talked about its controls, how the buildings are being controlled, LED and lighting retrofits. It goes without saying that almost every opportunity that we look at, lighting is the main driver. No matter if it's extremely outdated or it's been changed out in the last 5, 6, 7 years, there's still a viable means to look at lighting. Boilers, anything to do with chillers, replacements, retro commissioning, HVAC repairs. These all fall under the umbrella of what performance contracting can help you as the town become not only more efficient, but you're showing fiscal responsibility to your constituents, to the taxpayers, those that are using these buildings on a regular basis. I'm one of them. I come in a lot of here all the time. Any question on anything on that page? Because there's a lot going on here. It's a busy slide, but it's busy for a reason.
We're going to bring potential solutions from what the shop finds in the field here and looking at your buildings and talking to your people. But the final project solution scope would be co-authored with your team. We're going to give you options and we're going to go through it with your team and say, well, does this make sense to you? Or does that make sense to you?
Great call, Jim. It's a partnership, right? We talk about that all the time, and we truly mean that. The partnership we're entering into is this is a very large opportunity. There's a lot at stake, but I as an account executive, Sean, and one of the things I like about what Sean has done, and he's been with Honeywell for 20 years, but Sean's also sold. He's also been on the operations side, right? He's been on a lot of the different fronts that Honeywell offers. So Sean's been around the horn, but for a lot of good reason, and it makes sense to me that he understands what we do. And the sales process, I don't like to call it that, but that's what it is. It's becoming a developing relationship with the client. And I've known Ron a long time. I've worked with him from my past, but that's all in the past. It doesn't matter. What matters now is what's in front of us, and the opportunity is real. And what we try to do is build upon a relationship that we develop through the supervision, through anyone else working with Ron or for Ron, the council themselves, Michelle, yourself at the highway department. Everybody matters. And to Jim's point, I like what he said is, we're going to present you at the end of the day with, this is all the stuff we found. Here's the detail in our job. It's pretty clear. A lot that goes into it. But we're going to need the assistance of the town to say, are we on the right course here? There's progress meetings, all that stuff. But it becomes a partnership at the end of the day.
And this is where I would add, it's our responsibility to bring forward a project that you want to actually implement. So to that point, look, our goal at the end of the day, frankly, is right. We want to work with the city. We want you to agree to the contract and do the project for you. So we need to put together a project that is aligned with your goals, priorities, etc. And we are offering within our proposal a $0 break fee, which essentially means if we do all this auditing, we develop this project for you, we come and we bring it forward to you, and you decide it's not something you want to do, we part ways, and that's it. You don't owe us anything, because we feel it's incumbent upon us to put together a project that you actually want to move forward with, right? If we're not meeting your goals, priorities, and needs, why should you have to pay for the study that we do? So that is an offer within our proposal.
Thanks, Sean.
And if I could add one thing, some of these things, if you're not familiar with technology, they can seem a little bit overwhelming, variable frequency drives, building automation systems, HVAC. In a prior life, I worked in local government. I worked for Monroe County is the surrounding county for Rochester. And I worked in the physical service sector, so I spent a career as the guy that actually programmed drives and installed lighting systems. I worked in 50 pumping stations, 3 wastewater plants. So I can have a somewhat intelligent conversation, although technology changes constantly. You know, I'm not going to be bullshitted by anybody on these any contracts. Anybody I can have I can contribute to the conversation as we install and maintain these devices. So.
Thanks, Steve. Good addition to that. Yeah, I mean, and again, that speaks to the experience level. That's why we got the right people on the job. So. Next slide is, so what, this is vital. This is what's in the RFP. This is what we came back with. You know, the RFP had a very clear outline of what the expectations were. Ron, you and I have had multiple discussions in the past. Something that came to the surface right off the gate, and a lot of the conversation centered around windows, specifically in the town hall. We'll jump into that though. You can see the proposed scope of work. We've got some pictures there that we laid out. The LED lighting and lighting controls was a portion that we looked at. I know there were some updates done recently, but Prashant was able to still figure out a way to do additional updates and upgrades. Building envelope, it encompasses the windows. Again, very vital part of our opportunity. It's been something that's been on the radar, I think, probably for a while. Ron, something that we had discussed that was high priority, to say the very least. And we'll jump into that in a little bit in a second here. Retro commissioning, does anybody want to respond to what that really is?
Yes, so retro commissioning is basically making sure the system that's installed right now in the building or that Honeywell is going to install in the future, make sure they're running as the way they were supposed to run from the beginning. So if something is not running the way it's supposed to be, you're losing the energy. So we're going to go around each building, make sure all the controls are running properly, all the systems, whether it's furnace or boiler, everything is running at its optimum high percentage that it could be. So, for example, at the senior center, when I was out there was a complaint in the open hall that one area has a temperature difference. There is 70 degrees at one side and the other side there are 60 degrees. And they have to call the main control center to ask them to change the temperature from there. So we're going to do the survey, make sure everything is going to run the way it's supposed to be running. There is no any gaps in the buildings, and the people in the buildings are happy with what's going on.
That's for your existing equipment. That's for equipment that we're probably not changing in the contract, but it's existing equipment that's running. We got to optimize the performance of the equipment and verify it for the recognition.
A good example of that would be like typically, we find within a building, somebody one day was cold and they happen to change the set point and turn up the temperature in a room, and they changed it from 72, which is normal, up to 74 because they felt cold that day, right? Well, 5 years later, it's still 74 degrees in that space because nobody ever goes and changes the fact, right? So that's the kind of thing that we would uncover through the retro commissioning process and correct that and save the energy for you while maintaining comfort levels.
Plug-loop controls. We want to talk about that.
Yeah, so plug-loop controls are basically a device that is managed through an IP address. And for example, the computers, the vending machines that are running in the building, they're running all the time. Even if you turn them off and they're plugged in, they're still kind of taking the energy from the outlet. We call it a vampire load. So what these systems do is they cut off the power so we can, if the town hall opens up at 8 in the morning and then it shuts down at 5, so we can put a schedule on it that everything is going to turn on at 8 in the morning. It's going to go at 5, but there's still a hardware button on it. So if somebody wants to stay overtime and want to work after that, they can press the button and they can turn the system on. But then you're going to put another command on it that's at 11 at night when everybody leaves, just to check that all the system that's running in the building is turned off. So basically we're cutting that extra load that's going from the devices that are just turned on and nobody's using them. So they're shut down for the time being when nobody's in there.
And it's really short, is it schedule based or occupancy based?
So we work with the town to make sure what schedule is going to be for each individual group.
Thanks, Prashant. Mechanical upgrades. That is kind of a vast offering. Okay. I don't know if you want to touch individually on this.
I went through all the buildings, I went through all the systems, whether they were furnace, air handlers, RTU units, and we selected each unit from each buildings, which makes more sense, which were either at the end of their life cycle or they were not running efficiently and there's something new in the market that's going to make sense to upgrade and going to give you energy savings and money savings eventually. So for example, at the library in the conference room, there's a furnace which is really old. It's not that much efficient, so we're going to replace that. There's some compressors at the town hall that needs to be replacement. They're at the end of the life cycle, so they're only going to run for a few more years. So we're going to include them in the project. and there's RDUs at the senior center as well that should be replaced. So these are the priority lists that I end up making, and I think that should be changed. But again, we're going to work with the town and what your needs are, what the priorities are for the town, that will be included in the project.
Do you work with the people that do the preventative maintenance on it?
Yes, so we're going to work with everyone that's in there and ask them how the systems are running. So that's all going to be included when we do our IGA, which is the investment grade audit. So we come in, spend more time. Right now, I only came in 2 or 3 times in the building, so I was able to get an overview and see the reports that were on the units. But when I come in for the audit, we spend a month or 2 and we go through everything, make sure everything, we have the understanding. I go back, take all the information, run all the calculations, and make sure the system is running the way it's supposed to be, and work with the people of the town to get an understanding how they are running the system.
And that's part of what Steve works, right?
That's a lot.
Making sure that if there are specific, like, there's always wish list items, things we're not going to know, frankly, when we come into a building, right? And, just specific areas of concern, like those are the kinds of things that Steve's really responsible for making sure we understand so that we can investigate further those issues and understand from your maintenance personnel or whoever in the town. We get all those wish list items identified up front.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. It's a good explanation. I mean, really what it comes down to, Michelle, specifically to your question, the people that are at the forefront for you, working in the buildings, outside the buildings, but are involved in the town, they're a vital aspect for how we proceed. It's not just us throwing measures together and thinking what we think is best. It's what Sean just said.
Steve, can I ask you, because this is being live streamed, can you stand in front of the microphones? Because that's the best of it. Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
See my pretty face now? I don't want to break anything. Okay, so with that said, all seriousness, what this all comes out to be is, what's the project? What did we do? What did we come up with? We explained it in the RFP, we put a lot of stuff in there, but what it shook out to be was $6.8 million, $6,830,803. Okay, so the things that Prashant, his team, that we as a team worked on collaboratively, and we'll get into that process, but what it shook out to be was the job you see in front of you, okay? The total savings in year 1 shook out to be $76,000, a little over $76,000, okay? Capital cost avoidance, almost $309,000 a year, okay? Positive cash flow over the term, which is 20 years, was $20,000. So the numbers you have in front of you, do they make sense? Do you understand how this came to be? Does anybody have anything that doesn't make sense? Because that's why we're here, and I'd love to explain that, but if it's clear as it could be, I'm okay with that, but...
With the capital cost avoidance,
It's repairs, right?
well, is it repairs or is it the fact that you're taking on the cost of the work?
You got it.
And the town's not?
Essentially, great question, Ed. That's a great question. So what's going to happen is, in the majority, Prashant, you can step in whenever, but the majority came from window replacement, right? These are very, very large, very old, and very expensive windows. The labor that's included, there's a lot of labor costs, it's a lot of work. What we did is, upon looking at the mechanicals, looking at the lighting, looking at the windows, we said, look, we can come up with capital cost avoidance. Essentially what it boils down to, Ed, is it's the cost that the town would have had to expend over a period of 20 years. We broke that down into each year, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and said this is the amount you would have spent out of pocket going out to the public to get a referendum or however it is you would have chose to do it. And so we included it. And through New York State, it's legal to do this. That's why we took advantage of it, because it makes the project even that much more sustainable. Okay? So we were able to capitalize on the amount you would have spent, and we included in the job as savings. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the positive cash flow over you said it's a 20-year term?
Correct.
Is that 20,000 a year or 20,000 total?
1,000 a year over 20 years.
1,000 a year over.
Yep. Good question, though. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so this is kind of our first pass at it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is going to require, obviously, further auditing, further refinement, further discussions to understand, again, what your goals are. This was us kind of coming at it and putting together what we think is the right project. It's going to require...
No town.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all those different aspects are impacted through
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Anything else on that page? Are you okay with what's there? Okay. Just want to make sure. So on page 7, collaborative partnership. What does it mean? We got 4 things that you walk through. I'm not going to go through every single part of this, but what I wanted to really reiterate is the importance of when you make a selection. Well, I got it awfully loud, didn't I? Is that okay? Is that on top? Can we edit this, Ron? Can we edit this?
Can I add that now?
I told you, I knew I was going to break something. All right. I'm not touching. The sales guy
He
can't touch
doesn't like
anything.
the mic.
Sorry about that. So the town of Lancaster, a partner selection. You're going to have to select somebody here. You know, there's a lot going into it. There's a lot invested for you, but you have to make the right selection. And I'm hoping that what we bring to the table, what we've been bringing to the table with the relationship I've had with Ron and building it up with the town. Michelle, I've known you for a long time. I had to yell at your son a few times on the field. Sorry about that. He's a good kid, though. Good running back. It's a performance-based conservation program selection. Okay, what does that really mean? You're basically looking for a partner that you can proceed into the future with that has the ability that this team has the financial stability and the capability to support the project. That is not, we'll get into the change orders and no change orders. Honeywell doesn't allow it. We don't do it. We don't have change orders. What we offer you as our fixed price offering is what it's going to be. The only time that changes is if you come up to us and say, look, you know, we, like with Prashant and his team, we're thinking about this. Can we add this in? We'll take a look at it, and if it makes sense, we'll put it in. Once the job's already been selected, okay? Once you have an audit done, we've got a contract signed, you come back up to us, hey, you know what? We were thinking about this. We'll look at it. It would require a change order, but for all the right reasons. And you have to have a public meeting to let them know that we have a contract in hand. It's been signed by both parties, that it's being executed, but we approached Honeywell and said we want to add to it. That's the best case scenario. That's wonderful. So that if you have a change order, it goes in that direction. Not with capital construction. A lot of times there's, you know, you do the capital construction route, and I know you've seen this. There's a lot of change orders. There's a lot of uncertainty. Not that it's a bad thing, because it's just the way that construction is. But we mitigate all of that with the performance contract. So.
Why don't you have Jim talk to the change order policy, because it always comes better.
Yeah.
Project manager than anybody else, right?
No, it's a turnkey project. Once we come to an agreement on a scope and get our bidding numbers in, some contractors, you know, there are no change orders. And I can tell you, being in Honeywell over 25 years, you know, one thing I tell people is they allow you to do the right thing. This company. Quite honestly, we had an engineering mistake on a project with an steam turbine. It wasn't performing like it was supposed to. We changed it. We bought a new one. We changed it, after the fact, because that's what we promised the customer on our savings guarantee, that they would get so much out of it for this. If anything was not, a change order to the customer, it wasn't, it was just something Honeywell took on. It was the right thing to do. And there's a number of examples of that.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, because we've been dealing with this lately quite a bit with these change orders, and it's not for extra material, it's just because of cost due to COVID, whether it be technical cost or material cost or what have you. We had a contract in place too, but change orders come through. So you may, and I'm looking at in-house subcontractors you have to get. So what I'm hearing is that you're going to present something that includes the subcontractor's quotes. And if the subcontractor comes after you for, hey, guess what, get a change order, you'll have to eat that cost 100%.
Correct. That's correct. It's on us.
Okay.
It's a personal embarrassment to the guy that's leading the project in the field to get a change order, so I think personally that's not going to happen.
We just had, so either that or they're going to start inflating their costs so much that's not going to make any sense. But we just had last Monday, we had two things.
Very real situations, especially now.
Especially right now.
No, understood.
And we're dealing with it on a number of projects, but
Okay.
we would typically, we're not, not coming back for, once we give you our firm fixed price, that's it. There's no excuse,
Okay.
supply chain, we deal with it.
The only thing we might ask is for an extension of time, right? That's what we run into, where, you simply can't get equipment
Yeah.
in a short period of
I
time.
mean, I certainly understand, like I said, we had one that was partial. We had an elevator switch or something, Michelle, right?
Yeah.
we had to add something. Okay, we have to add a piece of equipment. That's a different story. Change order or something like that. But when it comes in, it states that due to the circumstances of, I don't buy that. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what you really did is, what was the good what good was it to go out to get quotes, and all of a sudden a change order comes in,
And the nightmare starts all over.
you know, so,
That's our risk.
Okay.
That's the value we provide.
And these are turnkey installations, so, you know,
okay.
put a boiler or something.
I had to ask the question because, like I said,
No, that's a great question. It is.
And Sean said there might be extensions inside, there's not gonna be extensions. You got a schedule. Very good.
you guys can work that out afterwards.
He's the guy for the job right there.
The materials right now are tough.
I don't want to understate, I don't want to overstate, but I want to draw it back to what I mentioned about 15 minutes ago, how vital the guarantee is. And this is where you see it come to life, to what Jim said, to what Sean said, to what Steve is able to back up. We want to really take this to make this seamless, okay? This shouldn't be a burden to the town of Lancaster. It should be an asset, and that we shoulder all that risk and all that crazy stress. But, you know, Steve looks great for his age, but he knows how to work. He knows how to do it the right way. All right, so once you make the selection, you're going to sign a letter of intent, and that cements the relationship, okay? At least it's the beginning of the cementing process, right? We need to have total buy-in by the town that we can proceed. We're going to do an investment grade audit, as Sean mentioned. Prashant's going to have his team 6 to 8 weeks, roughly, you know, maybe sooner. But that's going to be the Bible for us to move forward and to progress into a guarantee, into a contract, and all the fun stuff that comes with it. The second part of that, the investment grade audit, we've been talking about it. It's going ceiling to floor, wall to wall, making sure we didn't miss anything. There's going to be checkpoints. Steve has done this for so long. We have meetings with the clients, making sure we're on pace to do what we've been asked to do. We're not missing anything, okay? I won't go through every single thing, but it basically is going to look at the measures that we have in the RFP, and we can expand upon or detract depending on what the selections are, okay? Implementing. This is something that Honeywell takes very seriously. This is where the boots hit the ground. This is the construction. This is what makes this thing come to life. These windows get replaced. These lights get changed. Our implementation process, as far as I'm concerned, I've only been here the year that I've been here, but I've done this a long time. It's second to none. Sean can back this up, and Jim as well, and I'll let them jump in whenever, but that's going to be the time where we really shine, okay? The construction, there's no delay. We've got this down to a science. We know what we need to take place, or what needs to take place. We know how it has to take place and how it has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, our goal at the end of the day is that town of Lancaster is a reference for us. We want to make sure that, you know, the project goes well, you get everything that you want, you're satisfied and happy with the end product. So, just putting it simply, right? I mean, that's our goal, is to make you happy at the end of the day. And I will tell you that, you know, it's one thing coming from me, but I've seen Jim and his team work. They work around your schedules. Things are going to pop up. You're going to need a building for a certain reason. They're going to move the resources from one place to another. We're going to stay out of your way, stay out of your hair. They're experts at doing that, and you know, it's one of the reasons that I appreciate the opportunity to actually work with them, is they make everything go well at the end of the day, right? So I don't know if you want to add anything, Jim, but
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at this slide here, you know, a lot of people have a sales guy here, nothing negative. Stellar job. Then they'll hand it to somebody like Prashant to do the solution development and develop the scope. Then they'll hand it to Steve, who's going to install the project, and then he'll hand it to, you know, measurement and verification of service. This group you've got here today is, you know, and this is what I believe we do differently. We're involved, each one of us is involved at every step here. We're not handing it off, you're not going to get a project and they're going to hand it to a project manager who's never seen it before, and he walks in and he's like, oh, that's not going to work, I can't do this. So Steve's here for construct the building. Is this the right thing to do? Can we access it? You know, figuring all those things out. So this team that's sitting here today is involved in this whole process. This is your team.
These guys become the face of the project, and my face starts to disappear more, which is always a good thing. I'm not going to break anything, you know, make sales guy things go on. I'm trying to be funny, but, you know, in all reality, we take it very serious because that's when it all comes to light, okay? One thing I want to talk about real quickly in the implementation phase. Ron, we talked about grants. You had asked me right from the get-go, you have a company that you work with that does grant writing. Sean and I talked about this a little bit over this period of the development of this process. And, you know, Sean, I don't know if you want to hit it or touch it more than...
Yeah, sure. So we have grant writers in-house. We often go after grants for our customers, but I will tell you again, if this, you know, this is your project at the end of the day, and if you're really comfortable with your grant writer, that's who you like to work with, that's who you prefer to be a part of the project, we're happy to bring that person on board as a partner with us, where we actually, you know, pay them to do what they need to do on our dime to go out and secure those grants for you.
Plus, no one says they can't work in conjunction, right?
Sorry, what's that?
So nobody says that they can't work in conjunction, right?
Correct, yeah, no, they can, yeah, absolutely. However best the arrangement is, we want to work with you, that's what, you know, we're flexible, that's what it comes down to. We're not going to say it's got to be our team doing it, we have to control everything. We want the best end result for the town, whatever that ends up being. You know,
And just as, real quick, speaking of grants, and I'm not sure how the state law may interact with the grant requirements, but in New York State, every grant requirement, we have MWBE requirements or DBE requirements, thing where the money's coming from. I assume that's handled through you or your subcontractors, that you'll make sure those issues are covered.
Yes.
Minority women-owned businesses, whatever else is required.
Yeah, very accustomed to working under those requirements.
That's a good point, Ed. So the last part of this is post-construction guarantee period. Again, in the slide following this, we'll get into this a little bit deeper, but you know, this is the most vital part. Now that everything's been installed, all the construction, all the dust has settled, we're going to have to make sure that we're on pace to hit the guarantee that we've offered, okay? And the measurement and verification protocols that are put in place by New York State, they're pretty stringent, and there's a reason why, because we can't just come in fly by night. Yeah, we slapped it in, you know, we're out of there. We'll never leave a customer hanging, and the M&V portion is extremely vital. Is there any other questions on this particular slide? Because I'll jump into the M&V. And one more thing, I want to confirm the time run. How much we have till 10:30? But I want to give you time just to ask questions. Are we on pace, or are we okay?
Mine said 10:30.
Okay.
I have 11 o'clock, I gotta be, I
Okay.
definitely have to
Okay.
be in.
Yeah, so it's 10 to 10.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that's it for that page. If you have any other questions, you know.
You want me to, this is like my favorite slides.
The M&V? Sean's on. Here we go.
All right, so just real simply, I like to talk about this slide because I feel like measurement and verification is one of those things that a lot of customers aren't used to doing in those terms, right? It's not something that you're used to. There's a lot of contractual terms around it. It can get pretty complicated. If we had our measurement and verification team here with you, they confuse you as well as us, right? Like, there's just a lot to it. So this slide, I believe, really boils it down. What it really comes down to is looking at it from the perspective of who has the risk, right? So when Honeywell does the project, we offer our typical approach is to offer option A on electric savings and option C on thermal savings, okay? The reason we do that is because, and I'll go through each option first just to level set there. So option A, the risk is really on the customer, is what it comes down to. It's kind of like it's kind of like basically saying, these are the savings we expect to get, and when you sign a contract, they're essentially accepted. We're going to do some measurement through the process, right? But it's kind of like basing it on a calculation, okay? That's what it comes down to. It's based on a calculation. That calculation is probably not going to change a whole bunch, so the risk is really like on the customer. Option B is where we're able to isolate energy conservation measures, so like put a meter in for that specific energy conservation measure and look at the meter to see whether you're actually generating savings or not. Typically not very practical, so it's not used a lot, okay? And then option C is, so on option C, the risk is on the ESCO, the Energy Services Company. And that's because it's based on utility bills. There's no denying a utility bill, right? If we take your bills, we look at them, we normalize them for the weather that occurred during the year to say like, okay, well, because obviously if it's colder, you're going to use more natural gas to heat your buildings, right? So we need to take that out of the equation. So we reconcile all that by normalizing it. And then we essentially say, did you save what you were supposed to save? And it takes into consideration a whole bunch of energy conservation measures at one time. Because if you think about it, if we, I mean, a good example, easy example, right, is if we replace the lights in here, if you have fluorescent lights in the building, and we replace them with LED, we're actually not putting as much heat into the building anymore, right? So we have to take a penalty for that. It's actually like saying, okay, we're gonna have to use more boiler usage now because we're not heating as much with the lights anymore. So there's a lot of interaction. It's pretty complicated what happens within the building, but the utility bill encapsulates it all, right? So if we simply use option C for thermal savings, things such as boiler, replacing the windows, all those different aspects, it all is taken into consideration in that option C idea, right? Option A, we use where it's a simple thing to calculate, like a light bulb. If we're going to replace a light bulb in your building, we know there's a 32-watt bulb, and now we're going to put in an 8-watt bulb. So we've now saved, what's that, 24 watts, right? So we take 24 watts times the number of hours you use your building, so we can pretty easily figure out what your savings is going to be. So in those instances, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out what the savings are, because money, time is money, right? So there is a cost associated with measurement and verification contract, and we want to make sure we're putting together the most effective measurement and verification program for you. So that's part of the process that Steve talked about. We would actually sit with you, walk through all of the different energy conservation measures you select, and then put together a plan that best protects the town of Lancaster to make sure you're comfortable the energy savings are going to be there. So I know I said a lot, and it probably complicated more than I wanted to, but ultimately what it comes down to is option C is something that we offer to all of our customers, and we don't see a lot of other ESCOs offer.
One of the problems, it's not just, it's everybody's going to have here to the normal resident, if you will. We're not going to realize the real savings as we would have yesterday. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the cost of energy is skyrocketing. Okay? And it's, you know, we could put all these changes in, and the savings, which would have been at those rates, would have been this big, will be shrunk down to this big. People won't realize that if we didn't do this, our costs would have went.
Your avoided cost is tremendously more than what you realize.
Right. And that's, you know, I mean, people in this room obviously know what we're talking about here, but the general public, you know, when you try to explain why you did this, they're looking at the bare facts, and those are the numbers, and unfortunately, the numbers aren't on our side, aren't going to be on our side, no matter who does this.
Sure.
It's just the you know, facts that we're dealing with energy costs, gas costs, and things of that nature, knowing the skyrocket, as you can see right now, and continue to skyrocket. It's, these projects are just, again, like I said, if you don't do something like this, you know, you'll hear about it. But even if you do something, it's not going to show the true factual savings. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
You know, when you boil it down, we're saving units of energy. Right? So many therms, so many kilowatts. You know, that's really what we're saving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ron, one thing that I would offer up is maybe not so much even to the council themselves, because I think they've been exposed. I know they have. We've talked back in, January, February. One thing you can offer up is, and maybe for the public it's a great PR thing, is, you know, Honeywell came in and the consumption, or the reduction in consumption was, let's say it's 30%. Utilities could double tomorrow. We have no control of the cost of gas and electric. Nobody does, except the utilities. Okay, so you're still going to have a 30% reduction, right? You're still going to have a substantial savings, no matter if tomorrow Armageddon hits and everything doubles from gas and electric. The selling point, and I don't like the word sales or selling anything, but the selling point that you can cement to the public, to the council itself, is that we're still going to save. And if we don't take action, we're not showing fiscal responsibility, we could take advantage of almost $7 million of energy upgrades. Mm-hmm. Why would we not?
Again, I think the people in this room clearly understand that, but it's the general public.
It's all hard concept.
It's just like, I'll give you a different example. So the town does a revale, assessments go up, okay? Well, let's say a $150,000 home, the assessment went up to $175,000. But everybody's assessment went up because of the cost. right away, my taxes are going up. Well, in reality, their taxes actually went down. They just look at the assessment going up 25,000, and they're making calls, and they're going crazy on this, not really looking at the whole picture.
Yeah.
And that's the analogy. I think
Well-
it's a true analogy to use.
Yeah, it gets confusing for people to grasp the concept.
Mhm.
Theoretically, the higher the utility prices go, more money you're going to save.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
because it's a cost avoidance issue. It's not
Yes.
just a cost issue.
And I will tell you on that front, I mean, we do have, just not, but we have a communications organization within Honeywell too, and that's something that we're happy to help with in these projects. A lot of times we do press releases to try to educate people so that they do understand what's happening, you know, and
Yeah.
to show the benefits.
That's good, great point, Sean. One last thing, and I won't dog that too much longer, but another great PR thing for you, Ron, is, you know, you've taken the time, you've invested the interest and the time, and so is the rest of the group here, is that one of the things you're helping to avoid is another referendum that's going out to the town, right? Another tax increase for another X amount of millions of dollars that you needed to, you know, beyond what the energy side of it. You probably have needs that you still can't address, right, Ed, and right, you know, Michelle and Ron. You probably got a list a mile long of things you would love to get done, and you have to go out to your public for that, right? You have to get a referendum passed. This is the way you avoid that, and we burden all the risk. Your town, your constituents, yourselves, you get the necessary upgrades that you were asking for with zero risk, and you don't have to go ask them to approve it. That's the huge advantage here. So if you want to take some good out of it, that's what I would maybe think about.
Steve, can I take your one more time? I apologize.
You're fine.
In the guarantee, I can't help myself, the guaranteed savings slide. On the bottom of that, I just want to point out one thing to you, that we talked about what our guaranteed success rate is on there. In general, 98.3% success, right? So we have missed, right? And in the past 4 years, 99.1%. So we have missed our guaranteed savings, which means we have paid customers. I've seen many times where ESCOs are asked, have you ever paid out? And they say, no, we never made a mistake. And I find that hard to believe. So I try to, I like to point this out, that we actually have written checks. We have customers you can talk to about that. Our guarantees are valid and good. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. You know, what comes out of potentially it could be adversity becomes prosperity. Honeywell's not running away. We have no reason to. We have, what, $13 billion I showed you before? If we need to draw upon it, which there's no way we'll ever have to, but knowing that it's there is huge. It's reassurance. Any other questions on that slide at all? Okay. So we got into the references. I'm not going to go through every single detail, but these were in the RFP. We just expanded upon what you were shown. These are very similar projects. I don't know, Jim, you can maybe point to if there's one that jumps out or that was similar that we worked on. We wanted to put these back in here because these are important. This is what we keep basing our next jobs on. And you'll see in momentarily here, we're all over the state of New York, amongst New Jersey and the rest of the country. But with the city of Peekskill, great opportunity. You could see the project scope. But I wanted to just put this back in here so you can see that these are very similar clients. Everybody's going through the same thing, whether it's a township or a school district or whatever.
And you'll see, you've done a number of projects doing window replacements, and you've got a good track record. There are some not listed here that maybe we did historic building window replacements, but particularly in schools, the staging and scheduling of that is pretty critical. But we've done some fairly large ones, Carmel, New York, we did up at the high school, I think Monroe, Woodbury, we did windows, Peekskill, we did windows. So, we've got that pretty good.
Thanks, Jim. Slide number 10, or page 10, New Rochelle. Again, it's a school district that you could look at. There's a few differences. They did a swimming pool, there's some steam conversion. A lot more was going on, but you look at these opportunities, and again, it's endless. As long as it's an existing structure, it has room for improvement, we'll find ways to look at it.
And the other thing I would point out on New Rochelle is a phased approach.
Yeah.
So they did phase 1, phase 2 with us, and many of our customers do phases with us, and that's something we're pretty proud of because obviously if a customer's willing to do another project with us, they felt like the first one went well, right? So that's something that we've done in many places across the country.
they're not typically like a phase one followed by phase two, you know, splitting up the work. They're literally separate jobs.
Years apart, right?
And just, excuse me, with the guarantee, obviously, you know, there's a guarantee savings of X. It comes in at minus X, that's where you want to write a check. It comes in plus X. Is that all the towns? Are you splitting that with the town?
That's all.
All of them.
Okay.
We don't share savings.
Okay.
It happened in the past, Ed, and unfortunately put, I'll call it a black eye on the industry, because what we found, what the industry found, what the state education department found, what school districts, especially the dormitory authority of the state of New York, I'll speak from a New York standpoint. If there was an exponential gain for the client, why would the ESCO ever want to take that? There's no reason. That's not what we're here for. Okay?
Yeah, there's
But
no-
great question.
New Rochelle example, it's $2.5 million difference. Guaranteed and they achieved phase one.
Yes, yeah, exactly, what was actually achieved versus what was guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that all went back to the school.
The next one's Town of Mamaroneck. Sean, you want to talk to that real quick?
Yeah, this is just an example where we actually had a payout, right? So you can see here, our guarantee savings were 1.9 million. We came in, achieved 1.875 roughly, right? So we wrote a check for $25,000 roughly.
Now, and going back to the energy cost, which is, you know, the unknown, again, you guarantee X in savings, and that's calculated based on the kilowatts and therms and everything else,
Correct.
and the current energy cost, obviously, what you can go by.
Correct.
The energy cost doubles or goes up 25%, who knows what. That obviously is going to change the savings calculation. How do you, you know, quote, cover yourself for that? I mean, that's out of your control, it's out of the town's control, obviously. I mean, just because the price went up 25%, you may miss the mark.
Yes, that's why we guarantee the energy savings and KWH and comps and all that stuff. So if the rate is changing, you can just go back and multiply the amount of usage of electricity and gas. And
Right.
get the numbers.
Right, so the savings based on the actual usage versus the cost. The cost is just a calculation after the fact. Okay.
Yeah, the contract will show all the calculations, that's when I go in, how we are doing our math and all that
Right.
stuff.
Well, it also includes what we call baseline. Right?
Yeah.
We're all going to agree on what that baseline energy cost is before we start the project.
Baseline consumption, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What is building envelope improvements?
It's basically, this example, the doors has door strips on it, and it's warning all over time, there's gaps in it. So you're conditioning the air in the building. So if you're heating or cooling and there's a gap, let's say there's a hole in the wall, that air is just gonna go up. So what we try to do is seal all that stuff. So there's doors, there's windows, there's gaps above the drop ceilings. So, and exhaust fan on the roof, there are gaps around them. So any air that's losing, you guys are heating and cooling that up. So now all the air that's going out of the building, now we're bringing fresh air, now we've conditioned that. So we're using more energy. So what we try to do is keep that air inside the building, and we only bring in the amount of air that's needed at that point. So,
Thank you. I just didn't know.
More of the
One of the
structural
common
side.
areas we
Yeah.
see in the building is like where the wall meets the roof deck, like nobody ever insulates that little area up there. And you get huge heat loss through the building there, so we go in and we actually insulate that area where appropriate and, you know, seal it.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Okay, next reference was Monroe Woodbury. Jim had just talked about this. Jim, do you want to talk to that real quick, or?
Probably, again, it was a school district, rural, very typical energy conservation measures there. I mean, building envelope, which is sealing, weather stripping, insulation, building management system, controllers for their kitchens there. Again, I mentioned we did windows. We did windows with that had some hazmat on it. So
Asbestos and
we are in the
asbestos and lead.
process of abating it to put new windows in. We were,
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it's vital and it's critical. I thought it was really relevant that we've had other opportunities that we're doing something similar now. There's a little difference here with the historical preservation,
I
but
was just going to ask you about SHPO.
yeah, no, you can ask away. Anything specific, or because
No, it's just, in other projects, have you dealt with them on historic structures.
Yeah.
We have, you know, we've done it in other areas. We did a library in Massachusetts that is historical, and, you know, it's a long process. We factor that into our schedule, because it's getting the approvals, getting samples of new windows, mock-ups done, you know, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I know, well, I think it's on Woodbury, I'm assuming, where you've got photovoltaic and you're talking solar. Yeah, that's gonna be one of my questions. I know solar was mentioned up in one of the earlier slides. How much solar are you seeing, or are you getting into as offering it as option? Let's put it that way.
So for the solar, we can design that based on the availability, if you want to do it on the roof or you have any land, so we can base on that. And then there's two different options. The first one is we can produce as much as town is using. So we can do net metering where if town is using, let's say 100,000 kWh, we can produce 100,000 and we can net meter that out. It's going to be zero usage. Or the other usage, if there's anything extra, we can work with the utility company and send it back to the grid. So if town is, let's say, purchasing at 8 cents or 10 cents, we can set it back, but they usually take it at a lower rate, but that's the excess that town is producing, and you guys are not going to use it, so we can just set it back to National Grid and then get the money from them and use it towards the things. So we can work with doing our investment grade audit and come up with a design. So we do everything based on the simulation. We take in, as Sean was mentioning, the weather conditions, how the shading would be, where it would be placed, and we run our numbers and see how big of a solar project we can do on
Yep.
the given space.
I bring that up only because they're going back to grants, there's money available for some of those projects.
Anything we can take advantage of in terms of reducing your upfront costs, obviously, is something we try to do. We would evaluate all these things, though, right, and present them to you different ways. I mean, like solar, for instance, we see there's different financial arrangements even on solar, where you have what they call power purchase agreement, where you're just essentially leasing your building space to a power purchase, to a solar company who's going to install the equipment there. We'll review all those options with you, look at what the best payback is, and, you know, help you to be educated and make the best decisions in terms of what we want to do.
Thanks, Sean. The last one listed is Carmel Central Schools, and to Sean's point, you look at the multiple phasing on this particular reference. They're in their third phase. I mean, what it points to me is, number one, there was a lot of needs, but secondly, the relationship that Honeywell was able to develop and to continually develop and stay in good term with is more vital to me. That's why we're indicating this and pointing it out, and that's what I hope for here. I mean, this is really what, at the end of the day, we want you to get what you want, but we also want to keep you as you know. I'm a town of Lancaster resident. I've been here for pretty much my whole life. It would be great for me to say, you know, hey, I worked on this building. I worked on this. You know, we made a difference. So this reference in particular, though, there's a lot of measures that were implemented. Some a little different, but the same idea across the board. If the opportunity is there for us to make a difference, we'll help you make that difference. Any questions on those particular references? No. The page 14 Honeywell project list. I don't expect to sit here and go through every single thing here, but what I'm trying to do is, you know, we tried to think of a way to, in short order, give you the depth and the reality of what it is we're really doing here. And this is just New York State. You can take a look. You can get a magnifying glass whenever you want. Go. I'm trying to be funny. We could only make it so big because there's so many here. I think that the point being, our experience is vast. You know, Sean's, you know, we got a couple from New Jersey here. We've got New York State. We've got Pennsylvania. We're looking at Maine, Rhode Island. You know, the East Coast for us is really, it's a very highly developed area for Honeywell. And Sean heads up the East. There's a lot that goes on. We got some folks up in Canada that Sean recently took over. They're great guys. They're doing a lot up in Canada even. And, you know, it's really to point out the breadth and the dexterity and the experience that Honeywell's bringing to the table. That's really what I wanted this slide to portray. You know, if something jumps out in there you have a question on, feel free, but, you know, there's a lot listed. Okay, so we got about 20 minutes, a little less than that. The last slide is the next steps. What is it that it's going to take for you to proceed? Well, number one, this lies in your hands. We're here to help educate, we're here to promote, but we're also here because we care. And I'm Ron, I wouldn't have approached you last year if I didn't care. And I asked my guys to, you know, to come in and support this today, and, you know, they're here. We're all going to be here.
So what's the next step? Interview. That's us. We're here today. It's June 9th. You're going to have to digest all the things that have been thrown at you from the RFP and now from the presentation. The things that we felt were the most critical and the most important are here. Upon selection, hopefully, of Honeywell, per a final interview session, I would assume, Ron, I don't know what your schedule looks like. Is it next week? Is it 2 weeks? I'm not asking you. I'm just making a statement that you have to have some kind of a decision made sooner than later. I think you're going to have to talk with your fellow council members. Ed, you're going to play a part of this. Michelle now is here today. It's a collaborative decision. It's a collaborative effort from the town and from Honeywell's standpoint, and we want to earn your business. That's why I'm here. And this is something I don't take lightly. I've been doing it for 22 years. I actually love what I do. And I'm not saying it because Sean's sitting here, and Jim, and Prashant, and Steve. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like what I did. So upon the selection, Sean mentioned a no-break fee. Why is that critical? Sean, I don't know if you want to talk about how expensive an audit could potentially become.
Yeah, depends on, I can tell you that I don't know how many square feet we have here from the top of my head, but,
Yeah, let's say a couple 100,000.
Yeah, 10 to 15 cents a square foot is kind of what you expect it to cost, and it always costs more than that, right? So it's certainly tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that we invest in developing these projects, right? And we have a very rigid internal process we go through to make that happen, make sure that everybody's on the same page with where we're making investments, because we want to make sure that we're working with customers that are serious, right, and want to move forward with projects. So we go through the internal review process, and in this case, we've all decided that this is a place where we certainly want to invest and work with the town of Lancaster at no break fee. So essentially, what it means is, like I said, we're going to come out here, we're going to spend a lot of money developing this plan in the hopes that the town of Lancaster is going to move forward with us. We feel that if we do our jobs right, there's no reason why you wouldn't have. So, that's really what it boils down to. And, we're hoping that you're willing to partner with us in that way.
Thanks, Sean. One thing I want to add on to that, I find it very important to portray that Honeywell's best interest isn't coming out and doing detailed energy audits or investment grade audits. That's not what we're in business to do. It's very vital in how we proceed, though, right? This is very important. Our goal isn't just to come out and, hey, let's do as many audits as we can this year, and hopefully one of them makes sense, right? That's not how it works. It's a relationship. It's developing what we think can benefit you the best, can benefit the constituents, the users of these buildings. And so for us, it was important enough to say, and Sean made that decision, that we're not going to charge. But my goal isn't to sit here and say, I'm hoping you go forward, but if you don't, that's not what this is about, man. This is about doing an audit that's going to develop $7 million, maybe more, of work. But at the end of the day, we don't want you to have any heartburn over the issue of, or the fact that if something comes up, the worst case scenario happens, see ya. I don't want that to happen. Obviously, that's not the best case scenario for us. So.
But we need to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
So, I just want to, in a real simplistic viewpoint, the audit's done, fine. We sit down, we select the projects we're going to move forward with. Say that it's $5 million of work, just around them. That's your cost, correct? That you're financing that $5 million, and paying the $5 million to have the work done, or is the town paying for the $5 million?
You're going to secure a financial mode or financial means through a banking.
So I was just going to say, the way that it works is just we have a group within Honeywell called Honeywell Global Finance, right? And they're responsible for not lending money; they're responsible for securing money for our customers. So they would work with you and your fiscal advisors to come up with what's the best financial mechanism for this project. And typically, there's public bidding, right? So we would actually put an RFP out to solicit financing for the project. And then the financing would be between the town of Lancaster and the financier. Right. And then you would we would get paid from that financing through progress billing. So as the project's being completed, as a traditional project.
All right, that was my follow-up question, because so far, right, I saw this. How are you guys getting paid? That was my next question.
Sure. So
No, that's really,
Right, and again, yeah, so year over year. So the guarantee, so the energy guarantee, what Jim's saying is like, when you're paying back the financier at the end of the day, that's where the energy savings guarantee comes in. It's like, if you don't actually, the savings don't materialize, then you're short on your budget, right? That's what Honeywell will have a payout and make it whole. But in terms of so in terms of how we, going back to the question, how we actually get paid. So it's typically, the way that we work is like a percentage on top of construction costs. So, yeah, so we will bid everything, it's a transparent process, we show you what our budgets are, et cetera, and like I said, we will, like we talked to earlier, we're gonna provide you with a firm fixed price, right? And that's what we're gonna deliver to. If we go out to bid and the bids come in under what we estimated, then we'll reconcile that price with you, either through doing more work or actually deduct to the project, right? So that's really the way, it's a percentage on top of that cost.
Of the final cost.
Right.
And then when you're going out to bid a boiler, or whatever it might be, are you following public bid process for that?
So in the state of New York, correct me, check me here, we're not required to.
Okay.
However, I mean,
I shouldn't say, I shouldn't say put it in the paper, let it in a brother.
Right.
I'm saying you're bidding the project.
we
You're going
like
out
to
to
get
5
3 bids
preferred
for
vendors.
everything we do.
Okay.
We like to get 3 bids for everything we do.
That's right,
right?
yeah.
That's probably the best.
Yeah, that's what I meant, okay.
It's comparative and competitive analysis.
Yeah.
And what Sean's pointing to is, it makes sense for us to do that. We technically don't have to, but why would we leave ourselves at risk of, hey, you know what? We might be able to get this 10,000 cheaper than we thought, or whatever it might be. And then it gets passed along. Maybe we can find a way to get another measure into this job. If over the period of all these things getting looked at from 3 different vendors, maybe it makes sense to, hey, we found this much additional dollars. That's why we do it. It's a checks and balances. But it's transparency too, and we're all about that. You're gonna be part of that process too. That's a whole thing, and as monotonous and weird as it could be at times, that's what helps us come to life.
And all those contracts are held with you. The town's not signing contracts with every vendor and their brother.
We're the general, or the prime contractor, correct? Yeah, we take all the worry out of it. I mean, honestly, I don't mean to make it like, but the stress, the risk, the worry, that's why we're here.
And one of the things that, another benefit we feel as Honeywell we bring to the table is the fact that we have, we do projects worldwide, like Steve talked about. We work with the federal government, we work with pretty much every state, and we work, we're doing a project for the federal government in Korea right now. So we have a lot of suppliers that actually follow us to some degree around the world, so we feel like we have the ability to draw in contractors to participate in these bids as needed as well.
Yeah, we have the ability of extensive reach, to Sean's point. I mean, there's no limitation. So then commencing to an investment grade audit, I'm throwing dates on here just because it was just a centralized point for me. These are obviously going to be flexible and vary upon your selection time frame. But that's what commences and kicks this whole thing off. We'll have a kickoff meeting. We'll have all the right guys there. I mean, I might even be there for some levity and better than I'm doing now. Yeah. Essentially, that's what it was getting down to, coffee and donuts. But seriously, the reason for that is that so we make sure that what we gave you in that RFP and the audit or the all this information, are we starting out on the right path? And we know what we need to do, but we want to make sure that you guys are brought in. And again, it's a process, right? And so going from that point to every couple of weeks, Jim, you can maybe touch on this from project management meetings, and Steve, there's a checkpoint as it goes on. Make sure that we're still on the right path. I don't know if Steve, if you want to mention that, or Jim,
Well, Steve will be holding contractor meetings weekly.
And I would develop the entire project, so I will develop the scope and I will come back to you guys, run the scope with you, and if you guys are fine with it, if you're not making any changes or exactly you want to add sort of to it, so we can add that to the project, run the numbers again, and make sure that everything is making sense.
And then just follow, Michelle raised the point a while back regarding system maintenance. Like, we're in the process right now of putting out a contract for, twice a year, come in, change the filters, check the systems, make sure everything's running correctly, blah, blah, blah. We do that every couple of years. We go out to bid for quote for the HVAC guys. I'm assuming that would continue. I mean, you're not coming in and doing the twice a year HVAC maintenance on this stuff, right?
So, the town can either do that or we can make that as part of our project as maintenance, so we have our team come in and make sure everything's runs properly.
But
Not
it's
what you want us to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, follow that up with, say, you were not doing it, we were going out the way we normally do. What's the interaction? Because if they screw something up that screws up your savings, you know, there's whose fault is it, you know?
That's right, yeah, there's obviously a lot to it, right? But ultimately, what we ask is that everything is maintained to manufacturer's recommendations. Simple, right? That's the expectation. You're maintaining it. And then in terms of like our M&B contract, we do actually do site visits, so we would come out here and look at things to make sure everything's operating as it should, right? So we do that to protect ourselves as well as protect you. We want to make sure you're aware of things if they get changed as well. So we do visits. It's like a biannual, that would all be kind of worked out in our measurement verification workshop, and we'll figure out exactly how this is going to look. That would be one of the things to talk about, is how often do we come visit.
Yeah, so what that does is that continues into the transparency end of how we manage as an organization. One thing I do like about and love about Honeywell, and Jim kind of pointed at this before, we don't leave room for error, and we know if we're making a mistake, why was the mistake made? What happened? And we're going to tell you, look, it's on us, or it was on a sub, or it was somebody that whatever happened, but the transparency level for a good reason has to be above and beyond. Subcontractors, bidding, looking at pricing, M&V, reconciliation if necessary. We talked about it in here. These are all parts of what we do. It's not something that should ever be hidden, and it's just part of what makes this a successful journey. So basically, at the end of the day, selection of final project, approval, mutually binding contract. It's a pretty good size. You know, there's terms and conditions. Tom, I know Tom went to high school with Tom Fowler. His dad's also an attorney, or was an attorney, I think. Good guy, you know, he's gonna have to look it over, make sure the terms and conditions are you know, to the town's benefit, right? There's nothing in there that shouldn't be. You guys are used to dealing with contracts, I'm sure you've seen it. The scope of work will be now included in the contract. A lighting audit, line by line, all the things that happen, you know, the portion of what's now the guarantee is explained in you know, very detailed fashion. Cash payment schedule, Sean sort of talked about progress billing. We're going to have a cash payment schedule included. These are all things that Tom would consult with you on and with us and our attorneys and make sure that we're all doing the right things. Ron, you've been through it before. So there's nothing hidden. This is what comes down to the binding or the bounding of a contract between the town and hopefully Honeywell. You know, it's something that nothing should be hidden, and is never going to be. So with that said, we got about 6 minutes. I don't know if you have other very direct questions that maybe you need clarification on. Well, that's why we're here.
Okay,
I'm good.
Any other questions? No. Thank you for the time of coming in, preparing everything. Again, we'll meet as a group here, and I'll get this to the council members as well. Again, this is being recorded. They have the opportunity to view this. The other thing, do you have cards in case they have any questions that they can call?
Yeah.
Probably leave me 4 cards each. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the address on this is all in the office, but I'm based out in Syracuse.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take one.
I would like one from you too.
Well, give me 5.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because I'll take one
Yep,
myself.
I got it. That's all right.
You know, the nice part is this is helping me meet my quota. That's perfect.
How many boxes you
I already
got?
gave you 1. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. Right?
Yep. I just, yep. Sean, do you have an extra one, or you all?
I would like one. Yeah. Thank you. Just so I have it. And
Well, me.
do I have a
Sorry, I should have said
one
5.
at the end?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right,
No problem. You too, thank you.
nice to meet you. Thank you. Nice presentation. Very nice presentation.
Josh, good seeing you again. Here.
Thank you.
I will. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming in.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
So,
Nice to meet you.
I anticipate for timeframes for you guys.
Oh, because it, you know,
It's gonna take time.
yeah, the council has to, you know, because they actually asked me the other day, you know, why it's at night and stuff like that. So they, you know, it's, you know, you can review it's recorded. So go ahead and review it. So that's why I'm giving them your cards. You may get questions from them. Our next meeting is a couple of weeks, so we might start bringing it up then a little bit.
Okay.
And go from there.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I'm on. Yeah.
Remember, Ron, can we edit the part where I sort of wrecked the mic? Where the sponge fell off of it?
Oh, okay. We'll add that to your bill.
Super glue. Okay, thanks, Michelle. Take care. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
That's cool. Turn it off.
We could.
Good day.
There was the off-button, wasn't it?
No, there isn't.
Right, right there, it wasn't.
You called me 3 times, really?